We're going to find out more about being wild about improv from Andy Middleton.
Two great things about the Harry Potter reference. The difference is that the magic in this room is real. And if it all goes tits up and you run over time, you get a hug. And so it can't possibly go wrong. So I want to share with you some ideas about, someone said to me this morning, does your business do improv? Have you got an improv company? We have a company that does improv. And improv for me is an adventure. And what I want to share with you is a project that the bunch of us are involved with about how we use improv to reconnect people, how we use improv approaches to reconnect people to nature. And when you look at the landscape, this is where I live. This is where I live on the west coast of Wales. So this is as far west as you can get from London. When you look at the landscape from a distance, you look at planet Earth from a distance, everything can look okay, because we don't see the detail necessarily of what's happening. And yet when we shift our focus and notice, as Piers was saying yesterday, when you drive along now, you no longer get insects hitting your windscreen of your car because they're no longer there. We've lost things that are going on. And that the context that we respond to, we talk a lot in improv about noticing. One of the things to notice is that we've lost 50% of our wildlife in the last 40 years. To notice that the climate stuff isn't so clever. To notice that at current rates of extraction, fishing could be finished in 35 years, globally. So things kind of aren't going on okay when we look at it deep down, yet we've almost lost that ability to notice and respond. So we're on a mission to work out how do we fix some of the broken business models. It's kind of irony here of broken surfboards thrown away after a few hours' use, lying next to an empty barrel of oil that was used to make them on my local beach. If it's fixed, we need to have fresh perspectives and different skills, because we're going to be going into some quite wild places, as this lifeboat is, that's our local lifeboat here. And one of the questions we've been asking people in government and schools and business is to say, what would we set out to do if we couldn't fail? And this is my theory of everything in one slide. To say, you can imagine, so this is however you measure performance, top left-hand side here, and then what do we focus our effort on? Is it doing just what the rules require? Or do we respond fully to reality over here? So I sit on the board of a government conservation organization. We license people to pollute nature. And as long as you do it properly, you get 10 out of 10. You make products that can't be recycled out of chemicals that are poisonous. And as long as you fill in the forms, that's okay. And down at the bottom right-hand side here, we have a lot of community groups, a lot of activist groups who really, really care and know what's going on, but can't get shit to happen because they don't have the skills. And the journey of change is to say, if you want to get up into this top right-hand corner of asking what 10 out of 10 would look like if we fully responded to context, we'd end up in a really different place. So when we're asking questions is to say, if we really respond to context, how many businesses would you want supplying us with products that kill nature? None. You know, I love being here, but the system is antediluvian in this place. You get 2 coffee cups with every cup of coffee. Amazing. My towels have been changed already. I've been here for 1 day. It's crazy. But that's not 10 out of 10 performance, but it's 10 out of 10. It's 10 out of 10 on a broken system. So the journey we've been going on is to say, how do we inspire people to live long lives adventurously that are in love with nature? So I run a dating agency for nature. And it's to get people to fall in love so deeply with the space around them that they treasure it as they would a loved one and change their behavior and compromise what they do such that they live in accordance with the principles that are needed to continue that for time. And we're on a mission to engage thousands of businesses across the UK who do the same kind of work to redefine the way that we use adventure to teach. Adventure is still often a male domination thing. I beat nature, I conquered nature, I'm better than you or I'm more competitive. I consume nature. I consume it because it gives me a slope to ride a mountain bike on or a wave. But that's not love. That's like a big pint of cheap beer. That's not a relationship. That's a consumption of a thing. So we came up with this idea of adventure intelligence to say, how do we use experiences in wild places to teach people to respond best to context? So for me, what the difference between an activity and an adventure is that in an adventure, the outcome is unknown. If you go on a zip line, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it can be scary, but it's not an adventure. If you walk on a tightrope with no safety line, it's an adventure. And we're really good at the responding part of adventure, and yet I'm part of an industry employing tens of thousands of people who've not yet, many of them, heard of improv. Yet it's what they do every day. It's what keeps people safe. So what we did was reverse engineer, in effect, good outcomes in nature, and said, well, where does it start? So staying safe in nature starts at being alert. It starts with noticing the space around you, noticing the clouds, the wind, the water, how you feel, what your heart rate is, what your temperature is, what the groups around you looking like. Has the person who was really noisy gone quiet, or the other way around? And so the better tuned we are into all of those things, the more choices we have about what we do. That's what keeps us safe in the outdoors at a start point. When you notice the snowpack has changed, or there's a big set of waves, or the wind has suddenly increased, or God, it's gone cold. Yet when it comes back to the world of fish in the ocean, or climate, we've lost the ability to take meaning from those signals and respond to that context. If we did the same in the outdoors, it wouldn't work. In government, if government was an abseiling agency, God forbid, they would check the anchors, check that they go over the edge of the cliff, and that everything is clipped on. They wouldn't bother looking to see if the ropes reach the bottom, because the system doesn't require them to do that. So government measures risk in the wrong way. So the first piece is about how do we teach people to be much more aware of their surroundings? How do we get them to become smart about risk? Improv is about managed risk. Because in our world, we can take away the risk either by being in an amazing room of people like this, and because we have our own ability to let go of things that don't work. So this is an activity that we pay, strangely, people pay us to do this, where we take people on explorations where land meets ocean. It's the most powerful classroom in the world. And Tommy, who's the guy in the black wetsuit here, is managing safely this group of people who are being washed around by big waves, who didn't fall in there by accident. And by understanding what the real risk is, you can go into amazing places safely. But it does mean being aware of what the real consequence is, which, of course, government doesn't understand. Most businesses don't understand risk. They're not measured on whether or not they're preparing for risks that might happen in a generation's time, because we don't reward them yet to do that. So if we want to get good at managing risk, we need to be ready for those things. This was me on the right-hand side here, being winched out of the ocean on a helicopter by the Royal Navy, by the Royal Air Force, because I was on the lifeboat crew, and we used to practice all of the time being winched up so that they knew what it was like to winch live people out of the ocean. We practiced on the lifeboat everything you need to do before you need it. Yet we have no requisite for our businesses to actually practice what the future is like before we get there. They're just practicing what they do now in a broken business model. So our question is, if being ready means that you've checked that your anchors on your abseil rope are strong and that the rope meets the bottom of the cliff, how do we help people get ready to experience nature in a different way? What are the skills that they need to learn about being in the outdoors in a way that doesn't scare them, that allows every child to spend 20 hours a week now outdoors, as opposed to the 1 or 2 if they're lucky? So we're living in a world, as we know, where the level of physical inactivity is crazy low. In my small country of Wales, 3 million people, we have a £650 million a year cost of physical inactivity, because people don't know how to go out and enjoy this space. We have a £7.2 billion a year cost of mental health, because the people who deal with the problems of mental health aren't ready yet to work with the people who can get those outdoors into nature. Despite just being in nature reduces blood pressure. Being in nature for 15 minutes changes how we feel. yet we have a system that's not capable of making those two things together. This is what I do with my children, who I love. And there's something about, you know, having an appropriate level of balance. We can spend forever in big projects trying to get ready, but never get to that point of kind of making that leap. And that balance between preparedness and action is where so many big projects fail, because we lack the ability to get started. And all day yesterday I was hearing stories of people just saying, this is how we start. And I wonder, you know, how much more potential impact we can make as a community by helping people understand what that appropriate level of readiness is. You haven't got to be good when you jump off a cliff, as long as the cliff's not too high. The limit that we have when we throw people off cliffs for a living is the height at which, if you did it really badly, it wouldn't hurt too much. It's okay, you know, you can jump. We reckon you could jump off about 7 meters usually, and get it badly wrong, but you'd get a bit of slap in the face, but you'd be okay. You jump off 30 meters and you get it wrong, it really hurts. But it's about understanding the balance between preparedness and risk, and understanding that, because if you get that right, you can start to learn and accelerate far faster. This is my son on the right and my sister-in-law here on the left. It's not a Photoshop picture, but it is tilted a bit. They're all standing on a rock slab that was like this angle. So it's about understanding, I guess, who are the people we need around us?
Yeah.
Who are the people we need around us to make this epic stuff happen? You know, how many times do the teams that we put together to make epic projects happen lack the right qualities? And when we take out this mad group of people here, I think all but one of them are lifeguards, as it happens. So we go and do wild things with our kids, because we know that they all have the ability to say, no, that's not okay for me. They know their safety boundaries. Yet too often we see teams made up of people who don't have that. And clearly, once we really think about who that team of people is from a different perspective, we can set out to get a kind of a different quality of results. So what we're interested in, coming back to that team thing, is I work with a bunch of ecologists whose day job is trying to fix biodiversity. And I asked them, so when you get people together to try and fix a systemic problem facing humanity, what's the diversity of the people in the room? And they all look uncomfortably at this picture and go, Reese, when we try and fix biodiversity, we just get ecologists. And they can do fuck all. I mean, they care deeply. They know massive amount, but there are no improvisers in those rooms. There are no DJs or drug dealers or surfers, or probably all of them, but probably not in that room. And so really understanding, how do we make sure that we bring the diversity into those spaces as adventurers, as different people, to create that wild meadow feel? How do we get this fixed? How do we move from how do we make sure that the future for the kids on the left is more like the one on the right, which is my kids when we used to go and live on the beach for days on the summer? How do we give people those skills to reconnect with nature in an improvised way? You can't plan this stuff. How do we repurpose this stuff? Where these two things cost the same. Where these two things cost the same. How do we make sure in an aging population that the outcomes that for older people is what we get on the right? By understanding the only way to get into that space is by stepping into the unknown through improvisation. And remembering at the end of the day, this is my youngest daughter, remember at the end of the day that the cure for anything is salt water, sweat, tears, or the sea. I want to keep going, I was going to get a hug, but I'm going to finish on that. So to say, I would love to invite any of you who have an interest in saying, how do we reconnect people to wild places and play at scale, to come and, I will run a session this afternoon at an open space to come and join us, because this is a massive opportunity to get millions of people reconnected to nature for health and well-being that also protects nature at the same time. As we say in my part of the world, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.